What's going on, Burke?
Hey, James. Happy Friday. How are you?
Happy Friday. I'm good, and I have a question for you. We're talking about Ask Edit an Agent. Burke, I get this question all the time. People are vibing, they're jamming, they're coding inside of VS Code with GitHub Copilot, and then they open the chat window and they have like all these options. They have Ask, Edit, and Agent, and we show agent mode all the time because it's like fantastic, right? But I think that these different modes are important to understand when you want to use them, how you use them. And I said, you know what? There's no one better than Mr. Burke Holland himself. So that's what I want to do today.
Well, let's do it. And I don't know if I'm the best person. There's probably better people, but I'll do the best I can. All right. Let's get my screen up here, expert.
Boom. There it is.
Super duper. Now, this, as you may know, is Visual Studio Code. I'm in Insiders here. Just a quick note. If you want the latest and greatest, James, do you like the latest and greatest?
That's how I live my life. I only want the latest and greatest.
Do you want
Anything
the
that's
cutting edge features?
all the time. Why wouldn't I?
Do you want the first one to have the AI when it's self-aware and has consciousness? Then you need to be
Hit it.
you need to have Visual Studio Code Insiders.
You know what, Burke? I have it installed side by side, normal VS Code. I literally have both of them. One's blue, one's green. Why not have both? They install in like 30 seconds.
There you go. You can have both, and then you get all the latest and greatest features. So that's where we are today. Shameless plug for Insiders. All right. So you're in your chat sidebar here. Which, to be honest with you, man, mine's usually on the other side. Like, what's going on here? Toggle my primary sidebar. Yeah, there we go. Put the sidebar there, and it's over here.
All right. Fascinating. Live your life, Burke. Live your life. Live your life.
It's all about customization and doing things your way. All right, have it your way. Here we go. Let's start with Ask mode, right? Ask is kind of like the standard chat. Remember when they did the Copilot X announcement and we had chat inside of Visual Studio Code? And so that's what Ask mode is. It's just kind of your standard chat. Now, this is a great place to do brainstorming and to talk with the AI about things that you might consider implementing, right? So let's say we wanted to do, I don't know, let's say we wanted to add notifications to this application, right? We want this web app to send people notifications. I don't know about y'all, but whenever I go to a website and it's like, this website wants to send you notifications, I'm like, how quickly can I click the no button? Or are we going to do that on our website? Because that's what people want. All right. So let's just say, I'd say, what's the best way to show notifications to the user in the browser? Okay. So in this mode, it's really just like a chat session. And you can see it used one reference here, which is my custom instructions. These are actually in a file up here. They get included by default, and it just has information about my project. You don't have to have this, it's fine. But you can see here that because I have this, right, it knows about my project.
Oh.
And it says the best way to show notifications is to use a global notification store, right? And then he kind of breaks down the steps for what to do there.
So in this instance, this is kind of like safe mode, right? Like it knows about your code, right? I'm assuming you could reference code. It knows about that Copilot, the instructions file, but this is sort of safe mode. I love this because if I got this project, the Earless Web, I don't know anything about this project, TSX files, React. Like I think, and Hanselman explained it to me one time, imagine you're a new developer or just new to a project. I could go ask you 1,000 questions, Burke, or I could just like literally ask GitHub Copilot right here in safe mode, right? Because imagine, like, could you just ask it, like, what is nano stores? Like, give me more information about nano.
Be like, what is nano stores? And it should tell you. And to your point about asking about the project here, nano stores, it's tiny fast. So yeah, you're in safe mode in the sense that it's going to give you code, but it's not actually going to write any code. And you have the option from here to so there's a couple of options, which you can copy this code. You can, if I click this, it inserts it at the cursor. If we had an editor open, if we do insert into a new file here, it does exactly that. And then you have this one, this apply in editor, right? So if we had some code that was like, we don't have a notification list component, but if we did, let's see, add to your root layout notification list, you could actually pull up a file like, say, this file here. And if this code was something it was trying to add to this file, when you click this button, it does a smart apply, and it just tries to apply it wherever it needs to be in the file, right? Instead of you trying to copy and paste, because sometimes it'll give you code that needs to go at the top, in the middle, and then some at the bottom, and it will just smartly apply that stuff for you.
I see. So this is really like, hey, I want to not only just do some coding, but I want to learn about the code. I want to rubber duck, if you will, back and forth with it. You have a duck that's like sitting there, or in my case, I have a little monkey just hanging out. And like often I'll talk to my monkey and I'm having a problem, right? You might just go back and forth on it, but you can actually then put it in as well if you want to. So you kind of in full on like 100% control, right? Like nothing is happening until you do it, and you're sort of in this learn mode.
That's exactly right, James. It's so well articulated.
Thank you.
So I just want to do the smart apply so you can see here. Let's just do this, and then you'll see I'm just adding comments, but you can see because some stuff needs to stay the same, then it needs to insert things in the file. And you can see it's fairly fast. We've actually done a lot of work on that to make that quicker. And then we can see all of the different changes here, and we can keep and undo things as we want to.
So that's really important right there. You did the keep and then the undo is like, even though you did a smart apply in this ask mode, it hasn't actually modified the file. It's sort of like it's modified it, but hasn't saved it. It is in memory, maybe. It's
Yeah, that's a great. So let's remove the comments. This is an easy. That's too easy. Yeah. So what happens is this is kind of a new way. I don't think we've really had anything like this before as developers. But if we do this, it's going to take all this stuff out. And then let's see here.
And I like this because one thing that's really important is the diff, right? Like I am seeing it in real time, and notice that there's little green checkboxes right there, even on line 6 or line 7 or whatever it is. You can approve individual lines, right? So you can be code reviewing you're almost like kind of, again, you are in guide, you're understanding it, and then you're giving it this context.
Now, here's what's really interesting is that you can save this file, right? Now, I saved it, but you see how there's like this little, it says it's got pending changes from GitHub Copilot. So there's like 2 states. Okay. So there's the state of having changes like that we're used to where you save. And if I was to go out and actually use this file in the application, so in my application, like it's in hot reload, right? I could see any changes here, but it's not actually kept. In other words, at this point, if I hit undo, it would just roll all of that back. Now, what's great about this is that if you're working in an application like in the web, or I know for .NET, and you have hot reload and you it makes a change and you want to check it and be like, yeah, that's what I wanted, or it isn't what I wanted. If it's not what you wanted, then you just come back and hit undo, and then you're out of the whole thing, which is great. And it's a new way for developers to think about saving and keeping. We call it keeping. So you can save, but you haven't kept until you hit keep.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really like that. And it's cool that you can kind of go file by file. You're learning. This to me is, I am in sort of my traditional way. Like, and you think about it before, you might have binged or Googled something, saw a code sample, and you're trying to figure out where to put the code. But in this case, all this context of your application, of what you want to do is here, and it knows your code, so it can insert them smartly into it, which is cool. And I see there's also a bunch of buttons here. I want to point it out. You're in GPT-4.1 mode. I assume that there's different model. Oh, look at all those models. So many models. Okay, so I know that in ask mode, there's the most models. So why are there so many models here? And I really want to dive into ask before we get to edit an agent, because I found ask mode really interesting in this learning mode. So I see here that there's like minis, there's flashes, there's thinking, there's pros. What's the context here? What are these important for in this mode?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, let's clarify that there will be some models in my list that aren't in your list for a couple of reasons. One, because I do get some access to models before we ship them and everybody else gets them, but also because your organization may turn them off, right? So if you don't see them, it could be, I see this a lot, so I wanted to address that. You're like, I don't see that in my list. Why is that? And then if you're not on insiders, then you may not see them. Right?
And pro versus free accounts for GitHub Copilot.
Pro versus free, correct. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors. So if you want to see them all, if you're on insiders and you've got pro and your org has allowed all of the models, or it's just an individual account, then you'll see essentially what I see.
Got it.
Now, to your question, all these models, what are we using these models for? What are they good for? That is the question that everyone is trying to answer. And actually, Cassidy over at GitHub wrote a great blog post about this, where she kind of puts them into different categories. When you're thinking about them in terms of chat, I sort of think about them in two different ways, right? We have models that are really good at doing very specific things. You're asking them to do something specific and they can do that thing.
Mm.
And then we have models that are really good at something that we call tool calling. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here because that's an agent mode thing. But in order for something to be an agent, a model to act as an agent, all an agent is, it's a model that is calling different tools. So it knows what it needs to do. It needs to execute something in the terminal. It calls that. It needs to create files. It calls that. These are all underlying tools that the model needs to be able to call. But not all models are tool calling models. They're just not. And so some of them aren't in agent mode because they're not tool calling and the experience won't be great. And so what you see in agent mode, because you see a reduced list here, are ones that we've sort of vetted as being good for tool calling with the prompting that we're using behind the scenes to make all of that work for you and have it be an agent.
That makes sense. And like, I think the important here too is like, often sometimes here is like, it's not even about code, right? So for example, like imagine you're a new developer and imagine I'm like, Burke, go learn async await in C#. How would you even do that? Well, you could just ask it here, and maybe you could do it like a thinking model that would go deeper, right? And just, it doesn't even need to show you any code in it. So yeah, ask a new chat. There's a few things that Burke just did that I think are important as you are going through this that I want to point out. And I do this all the time is you asked a new chat, you sort of reset the context, right? The GitHub Copilot, when you're asking, it has the context of above. It kind of knows what's going on. But then you also decided to remove the current file. So by default, when you're in any mode, if you have an open file, it'll automatically attach the context, kind of like if you're working on that file. You can apply and ask other context. You can use the pound sign or hash sign to call tools or reference other code files or even methods and things like that. But what I love about this is that you're kind of in this real control mode of like what you want to do. So here, yeah, let's see what happens here. Okay, so you're going into this is a great GPT-4o, super fast. It has the context. Async await is there. This is great. Oh, cool. What is happening? There's a trivia mode.
Yeah, well, no, you can kind of force it into these modes. We made a whole video on this, on the different types of prompts that you can do here.
Cool.
So this is kind of stepwise. I'm telling it to move in steps, essentially, like ask me one question at a time. And then you're like in a back and forth with the model, which is kind of cool. People kind of think about it as like, I talk to the model responds. No, it can be a conversation. So let me see if I can get this right. What's the purpose of the async? Makes a method run faster. That seems too easy. Allows the method to run asynchronously. Async is in the name. I'm going to say it's B without even looking at C or D. Let's see if I got that right.
Well, this is pretty neat because imagine you're trying to learn something even on the code base. You could basically talk to it and sort of start this learning process, just like you were reading a book or taking.
It looked at my custom instructions and tried to bail out. It's like, oh, you're trying to make a project. I'll stop doing this and do that.
Well, this is cool too, because you might say, oh, I learned this new concept. I want to apply it. And you might add that to your custom instructions, for example. I learned that a lot. I kept asking it when I was working with CSS to add into a Razor CSS, for example. And then I was like, I just add it to my custom instruction and it did it. So a few more things before we go to edit mode. Can you define really quick what's happening with this add context and that @ symbol and how that would apply in the ask mode? Like,
yeah, so in the add context, you can add different context to your prompt, right? Because when it comes to models, y'all, context is everything. You can think about prompt engineering as just giving the model the answer that you want.
Yeah.
And the way that you do that is you give it the context where the answer resides. In other words, if you wanted to know how to implement login with Facebook, if you sent all of those docs into the model, then the model would have the answer. It's in there somewhere. It just has to find it.
Yeah.
And so you can include entire folders in and you can actually use the pound to do this as well.
Yeah.
Both you click add context, you folders. Here's all your folders, right? What else do we have in here? Instructions. We talked about these prompt files that we have, and I don't have any besides the one that gets automatically included. You can even include problems from the problems view, right? This thing here, you have a problem.
Yeah, what is it? Can you just ask it about that problem?
Yeah, and actually we can just say, what is this problem? Right? If we say problems, can we do it like this? Problems. You see it right there? And this
Yep.
is the way I normally use it. Just remember the pound sign. Is it a pound sign?
Pound or hash. I did get feedback. I used pound in one of my videos, and some of my friends in the UK got a little upset at me. So pound hash sign,
Pound hash?
pound hash.
The pound hash. Anyway, you hit that and then it's like cool and it's insiders, y'all. Sometimes this happens. I wonder if is this a model thing? 4.1 just came out, so it could be. No, yeah, it looks like it's an insiders issue, but you can also just like drag it in, which is kind of
Okay.
like it's going on here.
And normally, if you have a lot of problems, it'll actually do a drop down from the top, and it'll have you pick a problem or say all problems as well. So,
and I wonder if I hit it here. Yeah, there it is.
There you
all
go.
problems are just this one. We only have one. So,
but this is cool. Imagine you come in, you're like, I don't know anything about CSS ever, any at all, really. Just to be honest with you. But now I can add this context and I can do this here. So this is cool. Or I like screenshot tools. You can put a photo in here. So imagine you are coming in and go to your website, for example, that you have, and take like a screenshot of that. Right. So print screen. So here's what's cool about this is imagine you're like, wow, my designer gave me this. I don't know, any part of this that you grab, right?
I got it.
And you could just copy paste it in, and then you can ask it,
and
how would I implement something like this, right?
Yeah.
And that's the jam. So I think that context is really good. So that's ask mode. There's a whole lot there: safe mode, learning mode, but also applying code too, right? Oh, I love this. Like, all sorts of good questions. Like, teach me about Bootstrap. Teach me, like, how could I make this entire application look better? What are CSS best practices? How would that look like this? Am I using the CSS best practices? I want to make the point that it's not just even just asking about general stuff. It can be also about asking your code, talking about your code, understanding the problem, understanding the implementation, right? And look at this. This is beautiful. Like, it's walking you through how you would actually do something. And it's context aware. Like, if you are doing a web search for this, you're going to land on 1,000 different websites. They're going to have different ways of doing it in different formats. And you could even have it then do other things like, cool, put this into a table and put this into a markdown file. What would this look like in markdown that I could, put into my repo, right? You could have it do that. And then you could copy that markdown into like a prompt or something like that.
So what's interesting here is that I put the image in.
Yeah.
And I said, what are some suggestions for improving this UI? And it gave it to me.
Oh.
There's no way to copy it out. Which I feel like we should add a copy button here. I should open an issue for that. There's also there's a retry button. So earlier when it was failing, we could have just retried. I kept saying like the same thing. You can just hit the retry button if something fails. That's kind of, I always forget this is here. This is like the hidden. But what I want to do here is I actually want to let's move to edit mode.
Yeah.
And what I want to do here is I'm going to say, give me that again. That's marked down so I can copy it out. Now, again, we should have a copy button here, but these are just tricks you can use to force the model to do things that you want it to do here. And what I want to do is let's give these instructions, these suggestions to edit mode and see if it can implement all of these UI changes.
Totally. Look at this. I love it.
No, it's giving me all of my own instructions. That's not what I wanted. So let's just undo this, right? So, because it gave us an answer we didn't want. It gave us the custom instructions. We don't want that. What I want is give me your UI suggestions as markdown so I can copy them out.
So this is good when you're going back and forth. And this is an important context, whether you're an ask, edit, or agent. You're in control of undoing, redoing, and in this case, also providing that context, right? So I think the thing that's fascinating is it's not always going to get everything right the first time, right? It can only do as good as it can based on the context that it has. And even in that mode, it can only do so well as well. So in this case, now you've given it more context, like, no, give me, because before you're just like, give me that thing. And you're like, okay, it's trying to figure it out, right? But now it's saying, okay, give me those here. Now you can copy.
Right. in the history. Yeah. And you can sort of do that. But as you see, it doesn't always get that right. Sometimes it's like, I don't really know what you're referring to. And so you just got to be more specific. And you can do revisionist history. That's the point, right? You can always go back and just take out, which you actually can't do this on sites like ChatGPT, which I'm always, when I use that site, I'm always looking for this. And I don't think you can delete. You can't go back and anyway. All right, let's copy this. I copied this. You want to move to agent mode?
Let's move to edit mode. Edit first. Yeah, edit.
So let's do that.
Boom. So now we're sort of changing context, right? Like we are literally now doing something different is what you're saying.
Right. So let's move to, and actually I wonder if, can we send this to edit mode? I feel like you used to be able to just like send this chat over to, anyway.
Did you copy it?
Did you copy it? Let's go to, because when we go to edit, it's going to start a new session.
New thread.
All right. So now, in what's edit mode? Edit mode's a little different. You tell me. Yeah, you do that. You're better at the descriptions. Eli 5 in here.
Well, we're asking. We're in this safe bubble. Now we're starting to get out of that safe zone, right? So imagine here, we're in that little bubble of safety, right? Which is that ask mode. We're like, hey, we're pressing, we're doing the things, right? When you start to get into edit mode, you're editing alongside Copilot. So Copilot's like, all right, cool. We're about to jam on some code. Like this is going to happen. Now, how far it goes is dependent on this, right? So it is going to iterate, basically. It's going to say, okay, I want to implement this one thing. I'm going to either go try to find the files, or you can tell me the files, and I'm just going to go do it. Now, if it's not going to do other things for you, like for example, it's not going to like compile your code. It's not going to install NPM packages. It's not going to delete files. It's not going to do stuff. It can create files actually, because that is a possibility if it needs to, but it's not going to do certain things that are outside of the sandbox. So it's kind of like you're still in the sandbox. You're kind of playing around with it, but it is able to do what you want, but it's probably not going to go beyond that. Does that make sense? So for example, if you're like, go format this button, use Bootstrap, do this, it's going to go do that thing. And then when we get to agent mode, which we'll talk about, agent mode starts to think more, right? So it's kind of in this middle tier where it's like, I know what I want to do. Let's jam on that and let's work this problem out. That's how I've sort of described it in this iterative process where I can say, go do this thing. All right, that's looking good. Let's tweak this. Let's tweak that until it's my perfection. It's sort of like my in-between mode of like, all right, I'm basically thinking about how I would code now to implement one of these features. And I would say, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. So that's how I think of edits, because we're starting an actual edit session, right? We're defining the set of files that we want to work with, and we're going to jam on it. Now, it also does come up with files that like it thinks it needs to do too, based on the
yeah, I think they should just change this to just jam, just ask, jam, and agent. That was great. I would totally agree with that. Ask is like, it's sandbox. It doesn't touch anything, right? It's just giving you suggestions and you're in control. You copy stuff in. The most automated thing you have is a smart apply, which is a beautiful thing. Now, in edit mode, though, you're sort of moving towards like this agent. So you think about it like a slider. Ask is like, no, it doesn't have any rights whatsoever. You're in full control. And the agent mode, the agent has full control. And edit is like parked right in the middle. So maybe the best way is probably just to see this in act. All right, so we've looked at ask mode. Let's come back and make some edits here based on the suggestions that we were given by ask when we asked about some UI suggestions. So because this will be fun, let's just take and pop this next to the site so we can watch this thing like happen in real time.
Cool.
And let's pick, how about enhance the button design? Enhance.
Nice, enhance it. Enhance, yeah, click that button, boom, boom. So this is cool. So you're going to say, you haven't given any context. No files are open, right? I think this is also fascinating too. But you're saying, hey, there's going to be buttons. Go find the buttons and then go make them better, basically.
Yes. And in this case, what I also want to do is I want to pass in this code base tool. Remember we talking about tools?
Yeah.
Talk about tools. This is a tool. And what it does is it does an agentic search of your code base. This works in Ask too. And so I think sometimes people are like, Copilot doesn't know about my whole code base. Well, it does. It's just that it doesn't include that as context unless you're specific about it, because we don't know if you want that context or not. And so Copilot is really built on you being declarative in what you want. So we're saying, look at the code base when you do this. It might get this right anyway. It's just the more specific you are, the better you're on. So let's send it.
Yeah, and yeah, send it off. Let's see what happens. And sometimes I like to even give it a specific file, right? If I'm like, I just want to work on this specific file, right? And here's this thing. But this is cool. Look, it's searching all that stuff, and it's trying to figure out where buttons are at.
That's exactly right.
Oh, cool. So it's doing a bunch.
All right. So yeah, so we have here the button. So it's got button variant primary, secondary, and danger. Okay, I assume those are tailwind things. Now remember, we're gonna save but not keep, and then see like what happens here. Let's save. Okay, it
Nice.
it made the buttons blue and said delete list.
Well, tell it you don't want them to be blue. Tell them you want them to be you want it to be different color.
That's not what it said. It actually said delete button differently, outline or red background. Now, okay, this doesn't surprise me though, James. I'm gonna be real honest with you. When it comes to doing UI stuff, I find Claude to be really, really good. So let's just undo this. Let's get out of it. We're back to where we were. See how nice that is?
Beautiful.
Nothing is over. And then let's paste our prompt back in, and let's go with it's your call. 3.7 or 3.5.
I'm a 3.5 guy personally. But I also want to give you a quick tip before you send it. Go ahead and delete that out of your window, and like you could just hit the up button.
You could. That's true.
I just want to let you know.
Dang.
Now I want to let you know that you taught me that. So I'm just kidding.
And I forgot it. All right, we ready? Should we say? Hold on, I'm gonna bring this back here.
Do you want the code base or not in this case? Just give it all of it. Just go.
I mean, it's honestly, it's got the button, so it doesn't need it, but it doesn't hurt. It's not going to hurt you to throw a code base in there. And we're going to let Claude cook. Claude cooks a little harder. And the harder you cook, the more time it takes to cook.
It's cooking. I like to. So you hear these words a lot, like cooking, it's baking, it's in the oven, right? Things are happening, right? And what it's doing is it's taking the context that you gave it, which was a lot. It's trying to figure out stuff, and it's working in the background for you. Every model is going to have different speeds, going to have different capabilities, different things like that. And you saw like GPT-4 was like really, really, really fast, right? But it may not have been exactly the code that you wanted in general. So it's just going to do its thing in general. And here it goes, right? And one thing I want to point out here is it's telling you what it's going to do. It's actually planning this out. Right? It's going to add a new destructive variance. It's going to enhance the hover effects. I love that. Add a subtle gradient. Who doesn't want that? And ensure loading state is visible on all variants too. So one thing that I want to point out is it's actually really fun to read what it's doing, by the way. Like, that's one thing that I like to point out is, yeah, it can just do stuff, but like, why is it doing it? What is it about to do? And then you could take those steps and you can modify them. You could say, you know what? No, change step 2 to be this and re-implement it, go back and forth with it, right? But it looks like it did some stuff. This is cool.
It did. We're about to click save and find out what happened. But to your point about like the output there, the other thing that I learned, James, that's interesting here, because I had this custom instruction that said, don't explain what you're doing. Just give me the code. I don't care. I don't want to see your thought process. And what I learned is that these models need to think out loud. And when they're generating this like context for you, it helps them provide a better answer. And if you tell them not to do that, they'll leave it out, but the quality answer goes down, which is quite interesting. Okay. Shall we save and see what we got?
My fingers are crossed.
Here we go. It looks very much the same. So it was hard to see, but we got this like kind of drop shadow here on that.
Oh, a little hover.
Anything with the delete button? Did it do anything here? Oh, it did. It changed this to red.
Nice.
Okay, so it did do this. It didn't handle the delete list button. So we would go back and iterate and be like, handle the delete. I wonder if we can find the delete list. Let's just say handle the delete list button as well. And I'm curious what it will actually do here. If it will go out and search for it, if we have to be specific.
And this is nice too, because you can see the diffs that it did. It's going to take that. It's going to apply to it. It also added little hover effects. I want to point that out. Who doesn't want a little bit of, little things there too. So that's kind of nice in general.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Put a little underline under there.
Yeah.
Nice. It says it put an out. Okay, let's see what it did. What did it do?
You have an astro slug.astro over there too.
Yeah, it's actually, it's fixing the, the page. It's working on the page. Changes the button variant to destructive.
That's a trash icon.
It looks the same to me. Trash icon. Yeah.
Uses the new red styling for our button component.
Yeah, that it didn't look like it did that, but I do like what it did here with the trash icon. I think it's kind of stuck on that. Yeah. But yeah, this is essentially edit mode. It's right in the middle between you have all the control versus the AI has all the control. Should we continue on the rest of the way fully into agent territory? You want to hang out here?
Yeah, let's go into agent mode, because I think like even in this context, I'm sure you have other buttons and other things throughout, right? So I think when we think about going from edit mode to agent mode is like, I'm iterating on this design, I'm saving it, I'm doing so. Oh, there you go. You just didn't save the file, dude.
I saved the wrong page.
Burke. Oh, cool. Wow, amazing. And it has a trash can icon. Okay, so
that's
cool.
All right.
Beautiful. Okay, so it did do it. Amazing.
Keep it. You like this?
Yeah, keep it. I love it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Keep it. I'm not going to do anything to it. All right. Let's go to agent mode.
Okay.
Stamping up.
You describe agent mode now, because we've talked ask, we've been in edit, which is kind of this in-between safe mode, right? Especially here, like I want to give the context is that it really kind of kept you in that zone, right? But why would I want to go to agent mode, Burke? Like what's this step? Because everyone's talking about it. All the demos are showing it. Like what's that next evolution jump that I should switch my mind? Like this is an agent mode type of situation.
Right. So you can think about an agent as if, like, just to picture this in your mind, where you have an issue on a repo, and maybe the issue looks something like, we need to add delete functionality to this button, which doesn't actually do anything right now. And in there, it's all the things that needs to happen. Well, what the agents do is they kind of act like you would act, James. Like if you were given that task, you would start going about it to be like, okay, do I need to install any dependencies? Like, what does the database look like? I need to know about that. I think I need to modify these 3 files. And then you would just go through and do all of those things. And then it was done. You'd come back to, the issue, and you would update it and say, this is done. And here's what I did. And you would, request a review and all that. And so the agent functions very much like a human being, right? It kind of takes you out of the mix. You pass in the prompt, what you want it to do, and it tries to complete that task on its own, autonomously.
Yeah. And I think the additional context too is that it is able to run commands. It will ask you to run commands. So like do a run, do a build, add files, delete files, install NPM packages. So it can do that on your behalf. And it will stop in the process and the flow of what it's doing. But also it will self-check itself and self-heal. So for example, I find it a lot in this case of edits. And this is a real difference, is edits is like, cool, I did it. The agent, though, in agent mode would have taken the first step of what it did, and then it would have checked its work. And it would have said, oh, did I actually do the thing that I'm telling you to do? And then additionally, what I find is sometimes it'll say, you know what? I've added all of the CSS in line. I see that you're using different CSS, XYZ in your application. I'm going to go make that CSS go over here and follow your best practices. I'm going to do that. And then it will also, I want to point this out too, because I've had this happen in real time, is it'll say, oh, I've also noticed in this other file, Burke, you're doing it wrong for your CSS. I'm also going to move that code too, right? It's kind of like code reviewing in real time. So the agent sort of takes a little bit more like freedom, if you will, to actually go do some things on your behalf based on the context that you give it, right? It's not just going to go do random stuff. But I recently had this issue where I was like, hey, I really want like this code to be in a Razor CSS file in my Blazor app. And then it's like, hey, I noticed that all these other things don't use them. Would you like me to do that? And you're like, yeah, jam on it. Like, let's go. And then it just did it. And I was like, hey, I also noticed that there's a bunch of duplicate CSS. Do you want me to fix that up? And it's like, yes. So in this case, edit is like, I am doing this task. I'm giving this thing to do. Agent is like, I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to like try to see if there's more that I can do to go even beyond that. And that's not always going to happen, right? But it may take that liberty to do things for you to help make your code look even better. right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you clarified that about fixing its own, iterating on its own output, or what we call self-healing. And then the other one is like the concept of like leaving things better than you found them, which is just, these are just qualities we want from a software engineer, right? Like if you, James, were in the code, you might come back and be like, yo, we got duplicate styles all over the place.
Yeah,
I just went ahead and cleaned that up while I was in here because I don't think we want that. And it does the same kind of thing.
totally. Okay, let's see.
So let's do something. All right. So this delete button doesn't work. I don't know
Yep.
why. I'm just going to say, like, let's just be very vague here and say, and actually, can I talk to this thing or is let's see. I don't know if my mic, hello, can you hear me? Okay. That's cool. Stop. All right. 1 second. I'm just checking the mic. Hey, what's up, yo? The delete list button is not working. I don't know if we're missing an API method or if there's some sort of error. Can you please just check to see why the delete list functionality doesn't work? Also, make sure that we show people a modal before we actually do the delete, just in case they hit that button on accident, because it is massive. All right, now I have my voice set up to just not automatically send. Like I want to see the prompt here. But in agent mode, I tend to use voice a lot because I just want to talk like that. I don't want to type all this in.
Yeah,
Should we change our model? Like, what should we do here?
I'm up to you. I'm different models here.
Yeah, you can see we got a restricted set.
I think 3.5 did a good job before. My personal opinion. That's my personal thing. But if you want to
really on 4.1 right now,
it's a 4.1. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Now, one of the things that we noticed about 4.1, little inside baseball here, is that it really likes clarification, right? So it's a little too what's the word? Insecure. Like it will come back on virtually everything and ask for clarification. And are you sure you want me to do this? Are you sure you want me to do that? So look, it's diagnosing the problem. So the delete list currently uses a confirm dialog and then calls fetch. The backend API route is implemented here. Here's the problem. It's sending a delete request, which is correct, and the API route doesn't exist, right? So here's what it's going to do to fix it. And in this case, so we've actually done some work here to make it so that 4.1's more agentic. In other words, like don't ask me for things, just go do it. And it looks like we're seeing some of the fruits of that, of the work the team's been doing there. Let's see what happens here. Interesting. So it's actually, so let's, all right.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, and it fixed the layout.
Wow. So you didn't ask it to fix the layout, but it did it anyway.
It just did it because I don't know if you noticed, but it was wrapped before and it looked goofy.
Yeah.
All right. So then it's like we delete this and we should see a confirmation modal, right?
Hopefully. Nice.
You sure you want to do this? Come, yeah, done. Now, did it delete it? It did. I mean, and this is the kind of thing where it's like you start to see the future. You're like, wow, that's crazy, because it had to work across the front end and to be API to pull that off and also fix another issue along the way. That's probably a pretty good summation of what agent mode does when it does what you want, which is not always the case, although we get a little bit closer every single.
And you can iterate on it too, right? So if you were on that list, right, you could basically say, okay, this looks really good, but can you do this? Can you do this? And you doesn't have to be the same thing that you're working on. So for example, yeah, let's just do like some new list, right, that you have and you create it. So maybe go back to agent mode here and say, go ahead and talk to agent mode and tell it that the share list and the delete list buttons are stacked vertically and they should be horizontal.
Okay. Hey, yo, the share list and delete list buttons are stacked vertically. Can we get all of that stuff on one line? And we don't really need a slash command to focus the URL input. That's kind of a unneeded UI interaction, but thanks for that.
Nice. I'm going to toggle my microphone so I don't need to do it. It auto sends on mine. So I'm going to do that. That's good. So this is kind of cool because this is just iterative. I could have done this, and I want to point this out too. I could have done this in edit mode, or I could have done it in agent mode, right? The difference is that this will maybe take another step forward, right? And look for other errors or look for other things that it may want to do. And you've given it multiple things to do in this case. So removing the slash commands and doing other things. So it's continuing to think here.
Yeah, it's kind of
General.
stuck mid-thought, which I've actually seen this with 4.1. Okay, there it goes.
Yeah.
Ah!
Amazing. Okay, so
Okay.
I feel much better. I want you to do one more thing, which I think is of interest. Oh, look at this. It's actually adding an add. You didn't add it to do this. Wow, interesting.
What did it do?
So here's the thing that I think is really important is in agent mode, we just asked it to do a thing, but it said, go up here. It said, I've also noticed, just scroll up a little bit. I've updated the Astro page, and I've also noticed that you need like another add list link button. So it's noticed that you have a delete list button. Now it's going to add an add link button. So it actually added a whole nother component for you.
It did? Where?
Right there. It says files changed. Look at your files changed.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Did it abstract that into? It abstracted this into a button. Is that what it did? Oh, no.
It just made edits. Okay.
It just made edits.
So 8 minutes ago. Now here's one other thing I want you to do. So keep those settings for me, and then do this. So go ahead and hit the keep button.
What do you want? You want
to
keep it? Okay.
You doing the thread?
You be done?
I'm done. So I think it's pretty neat, right? Because it's able to like add this additional context. Now you could, for example, go a lot further with it. I recently, for example, was like implement entire light dark theme and like make sure you update all the CSS or refactor everything and add buttons and do all this stuff. And based on the model, it basically did all of it. Now that takes some time to cook, so we're not going to show you to do that, but you can do that. Like you could have it implement a button. So like, do this, Burke, for me. Talk to it and ask it to implement only the button toggle for light theme dark mode, and maybe have it do something fun when that happens, like maybe do confetti or something like that.
Okay. Duke, you want confetti?
I always want confetti.
Implement a toggle for light and dark mode, but have the toggle just show some confetti when it's pressed.
So in this instance, yeah, like that. Yeah, let's just see what happens.
All right, let's send it.
So my assumption here is that it's going to take a look for confetti and do a bunch of stuff and add a little toggle mode and things like that. And it's going to do some stuff. Now, you could, for example, do something. Here you go. This is cool. Look at this.
Yeah. It wants to install. We got it. So we have to give it permission to do this. We don't have a mode in which you can just allow. But by the way, one of the best practices here, James, is to run your agent mode in a dev container, because then if we do have a mode that will automatically run terminal commands, it isolates it from your system. So it can only do so much damage. That's a really good fix for this, probably.
I love that. So this is cool too, because now we have this nice little canvas confetti inside of it, and it's going to just start cooking basically here. Now, like we said, you could have it actually implement everything for you, right? So it says here, step 4, no actual theme toggling will occur, just confetti, right? So because we have a lot of things on, I can do it. I was doing this last night, and I cooked out a full light dark theme mode as well. Ooh.
Oh, look at that. It sees that we have TypeScript errors, and it's like, oh, you need the types for does Canvas confetti have types? Are you serious? Is that a thing?
It says it. So let's do
it. It never ceases to amaze me what all packages have types. It's now implemented. Oh, we gotta run it. You gotta run it. What? Give me out of all of this. What? I can't. Is it working? No.
npm run dev. That's the command you had. So when it did this save dev, it basically had to stop the server. Is that what happened?
I think so.
Yeah.
There we go.
Bottom?
It's here, but like you can't see it.
Click on it. Let's see what happens.
Like what happens? Oh no, it just sends it just sends us back. So it's actually not there. Let's hey. Make sure we've saved. Well, let's just tell it. There's no theme toggle visible in the UI.
Yeah, and actually, funnily enough, it tells you right at the very end. It says that we didn't add the toggle to any page. What page do you want me to add it to? Yeah, you can use it, and it says you can use it. It didn't add it though.
It didn't add it. I just tell it. Put the theme toggle in the header. See, that's the problem, is that I don't read what it tells me.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. Different models will do different things. So you were just telling me before we started this recording is like, one thing you like about GPT-4.1 is it kind of does the thing that kind of like holds off. It's not too exploratory, if you will. Whereas I'm a big Claude user, and it's super exploratory. It's like, I'm just going to explore, like, let's just happen.
Yeah, and I think that I know that these models will get better and we'll get better at using them and getting them to keep moving because there is some amount of, again, think about it as if it were a human being. If I gave you some instructions and said, I want you to do this, you may have some clarifying questions. You may need to say, okay, but I need to know this and I need to know that. And that would just be normal. It right now we're not really sure where that line is, right? Should the AI just try to figure everything out on its own, or should it come back and be like, yo, you didn't tell me anything about this. I don't want to make assumptions because models are really, really good at making assumptions.
Yeah. I like that there's now a confetti button that I see.
Why you not? It's
Jason-
coming. There it is.
Oh, confetti toggle. Now, the fun
times. Look at this.
Yeah. So the interesting part is like it kind of did what you want. It did say light mode, dark mode, but then you were like, just make it a confetti toggle. So it thinks you just want a confetti toggle with a little notification bell. Subscribe, like, hit that notification bell wherever you're watching this video.
That's really. I really like. Look at this.
You can. Here's a fun fact. You can always have more confetti. That's and look at it. It actually dissipates off in the fades. Now, one thing here though is we keep talking about tool calling, and I noticed, and maybe other people noticed here that there's a little tool icon in the chat window. If you can make this thing a little bit, Burke is just going.
I have to try this.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh!
That's too much fun, man.
You always need more confetti. So make this thing big for me again here in VS Code. Boom. So what are these tools? We talked before about tools that were built in. It was doing npm, it was calling, is installing stuff. We can use the fetch command. We call problems, things like that. But what are these other? You have 45 other tools and things like that. What is happening here?
Yeah, so there's some that are built in here. These are the built-in ones, and then we have MCP servers. So MCP servers, we've talked about this before. For those who don't know what an MCP server is, it's best explained as a little program that runs on your machine that knows how to talk to something else. Yeah, maybe knows how to talk to Postgres, or it knows how to talk to GitHub, or it knows how to talk to Figma. And then VS Code knows how to talk to all of those little programs because they all use the same model context protocol, essentially.
And it's a protocol that, like you said, that provides context to the models, right? So you've configured here a GitHub one and a Postgres one. Mm-hmm. And in agent mode, what's unique is that you can call these tools anywhere, but in agent mode, you can call MCP tools.
Mm-hmm.
And have it do stuff. So it looks like you have a GitHub one with beautiful secure tokens.
Yeah.
Postgres, MySQL. Oh, that's fancy. Okay, nice. I like that.
MySQL one in there? No, it's just Postgres. Oh no, this is a different. This is for the MySQL extension.
Oh, okay, cool. So
yeah, so we can use these things. So what we can do here is be like, let's keep the confetti because that's the dopest thing of all time. Just one more time. And then all right. So for example, you don't always need agent mode to code. You can use it for other things that a developer might do, like looking at issues. And so you might imagine on something like the VS Code repo, we have a lot of issues. And if you have a lot of issues, it can be really hard to figure out which ones you need to work on. And so what you can do is do something like look at the issues for this repo on GitHub. List them by order of priority.
That's cool. And it's going to assume like if there's like tags or priorities or things like that, it'll probably look at it. Else it's going to make a decision, basically, you think?
Yeah. So you can see here, it's looked at it and then it's making a decision for this. So we can actually look at this and see if it's right. So see, it puts these errors as top priority, which I would agree with, right? You probably want to fix the bugs first. And then it's got these like 3 is drag and drop, 4 is add a preview image, and 5 is add a confirmation dialog before deleting a link. And then there's 2 PRs that actually address some of this already. So it's just a really good way to like triage and work with. And that's powered by the GitHub MCP server here, where you can see
exactly what was passed in return.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do with this really quick, Burke, is, tell it that you're interested in creating and implementing a light and dark theme for this application, and have it create a new issue for you on your behalf, and on how you would implement that.
So I'm going to dictate that. Create a new GitHub issue to add a light and dark mode toggle for this application. Be specific about the requirements for doing that. If you have any questions, make sure to ask me for clarification.
So one thing I like to talk about agent mode is like staying in the flow of coding. And I think there's nothing worse in this instance of having to go take a look, open GitHub, do a thing, provide context, figure it out. Like that's time and effort and energy. And here, right, so one thing, drop that down. So what you may not have noticed, because it didn't show you, is that it actually did a whole bunch of hard work for you and is now going to create this issue automatically on your behalf and provide all this context based on your code. And this is like a huge time saver, right? Like we were talking about, we have this confetti button, but now we actually want to go do this, right? And the cool part here is imagine, add labels, amazing.
Yeah.
The other part too is in agent mode, you could also then say, go, so hit and create this puppy, right?
Do it.
You could then, for example, once you spec this out, maybe that's good, you go refine it. Once you have it good and ready to go, you could then say, hey, agent, go grab the issue for this and then go implement it, right? You can chain these tools together. So let's see what it did. Oh, Matt, a beauty. Look at this.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. So I think that this is really neat that you could then chain these things together, right? And then you could go and say, yeah, go take issue 17, go implement it and go cook, right? And let it go do its thing. So that's really,
absolutely. The other one that I really like is there's a Postgres one, which just has a query that it can just do read-only queries. But the nice thing about it is like, you can just say like, what is the schema of my Postgres database? And this case, I think this project, it might get confused by this. We don't need this. Actually, there's nothing in this. This is empty from when I was using an ORM and I'm not anymore, but it should be able to pick up. Well, let's see if it can. If it can't, I'll show you how to get it. So it's looking through the code base first for schema, table definitions, etc. There's database stuff in there. And so it's going to try to infer it. Now we can force the issue here at any time by specifying the tool. So we could say, let's start over here. No. What is the schema? How do you spell schema? That's not right.
It'll figure it
out.
It'll figure it out.
What's the schema of my DB? And then just use the tool, reference the tool directly, right? And then let it go.
Go. This is neat.
So you can see it's like pulling in all the tables. And now it knows what that is, right? Now, what's powerful about this is that if you're asking the agent to do something like implement some API method, it needs to know what your database looks like. Otherwise, it's just going to like manufacture columns that don't exist and schemas that don't exist because it's really good at filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
So I really like this one. I'm looking forward to getting a MCP server for other databases.
Well, there's always the Monkey MCP server, which is the best MCP server to go. I'll put a link in the description. Well, Burke, I want to thank you for taking some time. And hopefully we sort of demystified a little bit of ask, edit, and agent. Definitely go down to the comments and let us know. We decided to make this video and hop on and go through this because we got questions from you. Like, how do we use it? How should you approach this ask, edit, and agent mode? And how come Burke doesn't have a jingle that's AI generated for ask with an agent? So
tell us in the comments, where do we make that?
We want to know.
Who's still watching after all this time? Tell us how to make that jingle.
So let us know. We hope that you try all these features, check them all out, get stable, get insiders, jam on the features, jam on the models. And I think hopefully when you're vibing and you're coding, you can use these different tools at different times. And that's what I've been doing, and just vibe nonstop. All right, that's going to do it, Burke, for this one. I want to thank everyone. Don't forget to do all the things that we tell you to do at every video. You got to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Become part of the notification squad so you get updates every time we drop a sweet, sweet video right here on the VS Code YouTube. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm James. That's Burke. Happy coding.
We're out of here. See ya.